Welcome to the 2023-2024 Rater Reliability Compass Evaluator Training. This is the training required of all evaluators prior to conducting formal observations. At this time, we encourage you to download the PDF companion file so that you can click on any hyperlinks you notice in this recording that may be of interest to you as we go along. Please feel free to press pause and then press play again when you are ready to proceed. By the end of this training, we hope that you are able to share a common understanding of the Louisiana evaluation tools and practices and the impact of this data on teacher certification. This training will cover the evaluation rationale and policy and continuum of evaluation and certification, the elements of evaluation inclusive of professional practice scores and student performance scores, virtual considerations, rater reliability norming, and finally, resources and a survey that will confirm your attendance. Do be sure to click on the link on the last slide of the PDF version of this presentation so that you can confirm your completion of this training. We will begin with an overview of evaluation, law, and policy. Before we begin, we want to clarify the varying ways the word compass may be used. The word compass is used quite a bit and can be subdivided into several usages. Compass in general refers to the entire system of evaluation, whereas the compass rubric is the name of the recommended rubric used by the majority of schools for the professional practice component of evaluation. Other rubrics should be submitted for approval using the Professional Practice Observation Rubric Request Form. We will talk more about this later. Finally, we have the Compass Information System, or CIS. This is our IT system. It is the required system of record that houses the scores for observations, whether using an alternate rubric or the Compass rubric, and student outcome scores for the sum total of evaluation scores. Now that we have outlined the three uses of the word compass, we want to remind you to look at the elements and the process of evaluation in law and policy. The elements of evaluation include defining a job description. This means determining at the LEA or school systems level who will be labeled as T for teacher, L for leader, or O for other in the CIS system. This label then determines the planning for the sequential evaluation elements named here: professional growth planning process, observation and data collection process, and professional development and support. When these components of evaluation are not provided, professional staff may file a grievance according to the local grievance policy and process. When components and/or processes of evaluation are not met by an LEA, a grievance can be filed. Remember that the LEAs are required to have a grievance policy established to address the components of due process of evaluation in Bulletin 130. This bulletin outlines all the regulations for the evaluation and assessment of school personnel. LEAs should include in their local personnel evaluation plans a description of the procedures for resolving conflict and/or grievances relating to evaluation results in a fair, efficient, effective, and professional manner. And finally, Section 317 outlines the justifiable rationale for filing a grievance or appeal to an evaluation score. Charter schools annually shall also evaluate every teacher and administrator employed at the school using the value-added assessment model and measures of student growth as determined by the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. Charters are beholden to the standards of effectiveness and reporting in our Compass information system. Please note the sections of Bulletin 130 outlined at the bottom of this slide that apply to charters. You can read along with the policy here while I voice over that the purpose of evaluation is to provide support to our professional staff so that they can be the very best at their jobs and therefore the very best for our students. For evaluation to be a process of professional growth, we need to implement it as a process of professional learning. It is also important to denote the connection of evaluation to certification. When school personnel are evaluated by the standards of effectiveness, those scores should be entered into the Compass information system or system of record, and the certification department can access those scores to issue and renew or advance certificates. As stated, data in CIS is used to renew or advance certification. It is important to ensure that all certified practicing school-level educators are included on a roster and that evaluation data is reported during the upload window. It is important to note that when the CIS administrator chooses the job title in Compass, the system will then allow the CIS administrator to select specific evaluation types. The job description should be used to assist in determining the job title. When the evaluation type is labeled as Other, this evaluation can only be used to renew or advance teacher certification. The total evaluation score is comprised of two different types of scores: professional practice and student outcome scores. Professional practice scores are the observation scores, which we will get to shortly. These comprise 50% of the total score and come from two formal observations. When we get to student outcomes, we're looking at the value-added model, known as VAM, and student learning targets, known as SLTs. If you are a non-VAM teacher, your SLTs comprise 50% of your total score. If you are a VAM teacher, your SLTs comprise 15% of your total score, and VAM comprises 35% of your total score. So let's look a little deeper into VAM and SLTs. Now we will unpack the elements of evaluation, beginning with student outcomes. The value-added model, known as VAM, measures students' success compared to similar peers year to year. The VAM predicts how well students will perform on the assessment in comparison to their peers with similar prior assessment scores and background. Once a student has taken state assessments, the model shows the extent to which his or her achievement was on target with what was expected, which is the student expected score. The difference between a student's actual achievement and his or her expected achievement is known as the value added. Please see VAM frequently asked questions for additional information. So how is VAM measured? A student's VAM score is representative of the difference between a student's actual achievement and his or her expected achievement. The score can be a positive or negative number. If a student did exactly as expected, the student's VAM score would be 0. In this example, the student's VAM score is 65. The difference between her expected score, 710, and actual score, 775. The data used in VAM calculations is inclusive of all of these: prior year scores, student attendance, suspension, mobility, gifted classification, Section 504 classification, and special education classification. In 2023-2024, the VAM eligible teachers are comprised of grades 4 through 8 in ELA, math, science, and social studies content, and in all grades for Algebra 1, Geometry, English 1, and English 2 content. Curriculum verification each spring allows teachers and leaders the opportunity to review and approve their associated courses and students for the purposes of VAM calculations. Teachers and school leaders are given the opportunity to view, correct, and approve their rosters at this time. If the rosters are not verified, the data is used as submitted by the system. Once VAM has been run, changes cannot be made. Next, we'll move on to student learning targets. Student learning targets should be developed in a meeting between the evaluator and the evaluatee. We'll begin with student learning targets for teachers. Student learning targets are created to measure student progress to mastery. 2 SLTs are required for teachers. SLTs include goals which express an expectation of growth in student achievement over a given period of time, as well as common measures for assessing attainment of those goals. Approved assessments can be found in the SLT Assessment Identification Guide. This formula can be used as follows in any circumstance: X outcome in X amount of time on X assessment for X number of students. Student goals should be set based on data and keep in mind the amount of time to achieve the goal. This is helpful for late hires, those on a block schedule, or for those instances where teaching assignments change and the student learning target must be redone on a different course or group of students. When we look at leaders, current policy requires 2 student learning targets for leaders. 1 SLT is based on the overall school performance improvement in the current school year as measured by the school performance score, and 1 SLT is based on growth in a component of the school performance score, such as ELA or math improvement. To recap, teachers and leaders should develop SLTs in their first semester or immediately upon hire in order to understand teaching goals and plan for instruction accordingly. Teacher SLTs can be based upon data such as performance data from the first unit or module of this school year, formative assessment data, and diagnostic data from approved screeners. Now we're going to move on to the professional practice element of evaluation. We know that when the observation and debrief cycle is embedded as a part of professional development, it can help professional staff to be their very best. It is recommended that this cycle occur with frequency. Regardless of formative or summative approaches, targeted, helpful, and timely feedback and follow-up maximizes the impact of observations. The number of observation cycles required for professional practice scores at the time of this presentation is 2. Observation scores and effectiveness ratings can be seen in the chart on the right. Please remember that final scores should be entered into the CIS system. Observation scores shall be between 1.0 and 4.0 for all approved rubrics, with the exception of class or NIET rubrics, which are converted to a 4.0 scale. At least one of the observations or site visits must be announced and include a pre- and post-conference. This portion of the evaluation may include additional evaluative evidence, such as walkthrough observation data and evaluation of written work products. The Compass rubric is the state-approved professional practice rubric. This rubric is applicable independent of delivery format, whether virtual, in-person, or blended. Some LEAs may choose to submit an alternative professional practice evaluation rubric request. These submissions should be sent for approval to compass@la.gov prior to using them for formal evaluations. This form should be resubmitted for approval each time changes are made to it. For approval, the alternate rubric should be on a 4.0 scale and meet similar performance outcomes to the Compass rubric. As mentioned a few slides ago, all formal observation scores should be entered into the Compass information system with one exception: local personnel evaluations. Local evaluations are for district level leaders and those who cannot be evaluated via Compass. Incomplete evaluations should still be entered or uploaded into CIS with the code that corresponds to the rationale. Let's revisit our purpose for today, which is to ensure equitable application of the evaluation process across the state such that every child and school has the opportunity to grow and thrive. In order to fulfill this purpose, we need to norm on practices of observation scores and thus generate greater reliability. We're going to spend the next part of this training looking at how we use the rubric. We will use the Compass teaching rubric as an example, but the general takeaways can be applied to any observation with any approved rubric being used. If you have evaluated someone in the past, take a minute to think about your tendencies. We know that often when evaluating, it is easy to norm high with the rationale that your general thoughts of this staff member are in high regard, or the opposite, rating low to allow room for growth. In this next part of the training, we will work to look carefully at the rubric indicators and supporting evidence such as walkthrough data and written work products. Observation cycles for professional practice scores ask us to plan out how to best help the educator being observed by gathering as much data as possible with some of the questions you see on this slide. Norming with higher rater reliability requires us to plan ahead with the following questions. How will you assign evaluators and observers? What will your observation schedule look like? What role will walkthroughs play? How will you know teachers are teaching the right content and students are learning based on delivery format? What materials and information should you gather in advance? What will you communicate with teachers regarding the feedback they will receive throughout the year? What time and space are set aside for peer collaboration? How will you use peers to support improvement? These are the types of questions a quality evaluator will ask in order to contribute an accurate evaluation to the professional growth process. Please take a moment to pull up the Teacher Compass rubric so you can take notes as it helps you. It can be located in the Compass library or on the companion deck hyperlink. During each video, review the domain and component that is being evaluated in each video and press pause in order to do so thoroughly. Using that portion of the rubric, you will then rate the educator from the video. Examine each component of the strand with care. What is the dominant descriptor of what you see? Note whether you are rating the video above or below the assigned rating that is revealed at the end.
Question, right? That's you. That's actually your question, yeah. Can earthquakes form mountains? So maybe we can do things with a model that can help us see if a mountain is actually formed.
I think Karen was saying, like, with the tectonic plates and it goes up like that, which forms a mountain.
Which is weird because that's not the only movement that
Yeah.
it had, because it also went backward, right? Interesting, but maybe a model, maybe many models can also help us figure out this difference. You're on something, right? Yeah. Hey, how many of you at this point maybe felt a little bit stuck? Yeah, like this is what, some of these questions are more challenging than others to answer, but I think if there's a will, there's a way. So, we're going to kind of summarize it here because obviously I need your help. I don't know what resources to use or what kind of materials we're going to need to answer our questions. So, should we just go right through the questions or start with one? Or does someone want to be brave and go first? All right, cool. So, what was your name? What was your category?
We had avalanches, but not all.
Okay, I know, that was my mistake. Sorry. So your category is on avalanche. What did you guys say we should do to figure out some of the answers to our avalanche questions?
We said, like, to make a mini, like, the question was how parts of Mount Everest break off, and if, like, an avalanche breaks off parts of Mount Everest, will make it thinner and, like, kind of taller. We said, we can make a mini model out of rock and then pour ice on it.
So what's Tiffany saying? What can we do to figure out how avalanches may play a role in Mount Everest? Okay.
We can make like a mini avalanche, like a model, and just like put rocks and ice on it to see if it actually does something.
Great. Okay. So we've got model with, you said rocks and ice. Great. Any other ideas for your type? Okay, cool. Table 2. You ready? What was your category? Can you speak up, please?
We got Mount Everest,
Okay.
and our question that we answered was, how does Mount Everest grow taller every year? And we kind of combined that with another question, is there more mass underground? And then we said that we can simulator of what's happening underground, like a mountain just Mount Everest, to see if there's anything that could help it grow taller.
So what's mine saying?
Can you repeat that? So our question was, how does Mount Everest grow taller every year? And we combined that with, is there more of a mountain underground? And so we want to use a simulator of what's happening underground to see if anything underground could be helping it grow taller.
Saying. Mount Everest then. Joey? Using a simulator. Is that what you said? Specifically a simulator for what though? To see if there's any more mountain, or Mount Everest and Mount. So like a mountain simulator in a way? Is that what you mean by it? No, I don't know if such a thing exists. Okay, so mountain simulator. Any other ideas you guys have? Okay. So, you guys definitely gave me some great ideas. So if we're not going to go the volcano route, what probably makes the most sense to start with? Like come Monday when we come back to school, like where should we put our focus if it's not going to be volcanoes? Chanel? Maybe mountains? Okay. What else? Miles, you haven't heard music.
Earthquakes.
Yeah, maybe earthquakes. Like I feel like if we dig deeper into earthquakes, which is what happened at Everest, that can maybe give us some more insight. Okay? And I feel like I heard over and over simulator, data. Like maybe we need to do some more data collection before we end up building a model so we know how it works. Okay? I'm really proud of you guys. You gave me some really good ideas. You gave us some great ideas where we're gonna go. Okay?
Now you've watched the lesson, go back to the Compass rubric to decide which rating most closely aligns to the evidence for component 3B using questioning and discussion techniques. There is not an exception that a teacher merit every descriptor in a column to earn that rating. But the majority of descriptors should be accomplished in each indicator. When we bear this in mind, we note the final ratings assigned on this slide. When we hone in on the component of questioning and discussion and compile evidence, we obtain the final rating of effective proficient for this component. Keep in mind that we are only seeing a snippet of the lesson. An evaluator who observed the entire lesson may have come to a slightly different conclusion. So take a minute. Did you rate the same, higher, or lower? You may have good justification for your rating, but take a minute to assess why you landed on the rating that you did and what that means for your own rater reliability. When we look at the indicator level, while the teacher uses some low-level questions, he or she poses questions to promote student thinking and understanding. We see that during shoulder partner work, the teacher asks 4 low-level questions, which are questions with 1 clear response, and 6 higher ordered questions, which are the questions where students must explain why. Those are designed to promote student thinking. The teacher also scaffolds questions aimed toward metacognitive thought and discourse. When we look at the indicator level, the teacher creates a genuine discussion and provides time for response. We see the teacher provides opportunities for all students to respond to her questions during small group instruction and engage with materials. From what we see in the clip, student responses directly address the teacher's questions and objectives. During the discussion, the teacher allowed students to build on each other's responses during the discussion, asking them to formulate and initiate questions and responses. When we look at the indicator level, the teacher successfully engages most students in the discussion. We see that most students respond to the teacher's questions, and students themselves ensured multiple voices were heard in the discussion. For our next video, we will hone in on Domain 3 instruction, Component 3C, engaging students in learning. Take a minute to read across the strands and note what promotes a teacher from one scoring range to the next. And again, look at the highly effective row to backwards plan for your look-fors. Whereas we see for ineffective, the learning tasks and activities, materials, resources, instructional groups, and technology are poorly aligned with the instructional outcomes. Whereas the highly effective teacher, virtually all students are intellectually engaged in challenging content through well-designed learning tasks and suitable scaffolding by the teacher and fully aligned with the instructional outcomes. For this next video, we will watch a high school math lesson that asks students to prove that exponential functions grow by equal factors over equal intervals.
By 2. Multiplying by 2. Very good. Nakai, what is it divided by? 5. Good. Equal intervals are divided by a factor of 5. 250 divided by 5 is 50. 50 divided by 5 is 10. So it's decreasing or dividing by a factor of 5. It's pretty simple, huh? So essentially, I'm just finding a pattern of what is it multiplying by or what is it dividing by?
The numbers are 40, 43, 46, 49, and 52. So it's adding 3, which means that it would be the factor.
No, because factors are multiply and divide. It's not adding.
Okay, so that means the answer would be yes.
No, it'll be no. Because it's not. It's adding. It's supposed to divide or multiply.
Or the case.
I think it's no because it doesn't go at an exponential rate or linear because it goes from 1 to 3, it's plus 2, and then from 2 to 3, it's plus 3. Then 6 to 10 is 4, and it's not 15 is plus 5. And it's not at a constant rate, so it's not going to be linear, and it's not multiplying or dividing, so it's not exponential. So I think it's no.
No, because it's adding by 3.
So it's not a factor because it's adding 3 instead of multiplying or dividing.
I think this is subtraction by 5.
No, it's actually dividing by 2.
So would that make it linear or exponential?
Exponential.
Today we were able to prove a back over evidence that exponential functions, can somebody tell me what an exponential function is? I need a hand. You should be able to know that by now. Michaela.
A pattern where each term is found by multiplication or dividing.
Okay, then good. So a pattern where each term found by multiplying or dividing. So we prove with evidence that exponential functions are patterns where each terms are found by multiplying and dividing. Grow. Grow meant to do what? Increase, okay? They increase by equal factors. What were equal factors again? Okay, then good. So they multiply or divide over equal intervals. Can someone tell me what intervals are? Stages. Good.
I was able to meet my lessons objectives. I had a 95% proficiency rate on my
What is it divided by? The numbers are 40, 43, 46, 49. So it's adding 3, which means that it was
Because factors are multiply and divide. It's not adding.
okay, so that means
It's adding. It's supposed to divide or multiply.
I think it's no because it doesn't go at exponential rate or linear because it goes from 1 to 3 is plus 2, and then from 2 to 3 is plus 3, then 4, and it's not at a constant rate, so it's not going to be linear. It's not multiplying or dividing, so it's not exponential. So I think it's no.
that exponential functions, can somebody tell me what an exponential function is? I need a hand. You should be able to know that by now. Michaela. Okay, good. For each term, found by multiplying or dividing. So we prove with evidence that exponential functions are patterns where each terms are found by multiplying and dividing. Grow means to do what? Increase, okay? They increase by equal factors. What were equal factors again? Okay, then good. Okay. Multiply or divide over equal intervals. Can someone tell me what intervals are? Stages. Good.
We encourage you to now look at the Compass rubric and determine a rating for engaging students in learning before we reveal the rating that was assigned to this lesson. The evidence gives this lesson a rating of highly effective. Looking at each indicator here in this strand, we are able to isolate factors that contributed to the majority of the description on each highly effective indicator for this lesson. For example, for the indicator, virtually all students are intellectually engaged in challenging content through well-designed learning tasks and suitable scaffolding by the teacher and fully aligned with the instructional outcomes. From what we see, all problems are fully aligned with the daily objective of proving the qualities of exponential functions. Additionally, when we look at the indicator level, the pacing of the lesson provides students the time needed to intellectually engage with and reflect upon their learning, and to consolidate their understanding. We see students come back together at the end of the lesson to consolidate their understanding as a class, redefining the terms written in the objective in their own words. Through written data, we know that 95% of her students accomplished the objective. Finally, when we look at the indicator of highly effective, there's evidence of some student initiation of inquiry and student contributions to the exploration of important content. We see almost all students are working together in pairs, and in cases where partners disagree with each other, they engage in mathematical discourse to arrive at the correct answer. For these reasons, a rating of highly effective was assigned to the engaging students in learning for this lesson. We just have a few more notes for you from this training today. We want to know that once the system flips over in late October, early November to the 2023-2024 school year, your LEA administrators may begin to update rosters and assign evaluation types and set up evaluators for the year. You can also then begin to enter PGPs, SLTs, and observations. We encourage you to enter SLTs no later than December so that teachers have enough time to progress monitor and use data-driven instruction. We also encourage you to enter scores ongoing as observations are completed. The system will close in fall of 2024, but we encourage you to have all data entered for teachers before the close of the school year. Non-VAM evaluations can be finalized in the spring, and VAM teacher evaluations can be finalized after VAM is released. Leader evaluations are completed after school performance scores are released in the fall. VAM data will be released in October for the 2022-2023 school year. The Compass Information System will then open for the 2023-2024 school year, allowing rosters to be updated. Systems are encouraged to review 2022-2023 observation and student learning target data with teachers, begin setting professional growth plans and student learning targets, begin observations, and begin entering PJPs, SLTs, and observation scores once CIS system opens for the 2023-2024 school year. The LDOE has contracted with the National Institute for Excellence in Teaching, known as NIET, to redesign the educator evaluation system. Local data, field research, national research, and best practices will be used to design a system to support and foster continuous growth. In evaluation surveys, educators have voiced a need for valid measures, ongoing feedback, and professional learning resources. Full results of the survey are available in the Compass Library. We thank you so much for your participation in this training. Please make sure that you fill out this survey, available by hyperlink in the Companion Rater Reliability Deck, which will serve as your certificate of completion. Thank you again. Please feel free to reach out at any time to our Compass inbox with follow-up questions. We want to thank you again for all you do to support staff and foster continuous improvement.